September 19, 1944, 6:15 in the morning near Aracourt in eastern France. A thick blanket of fog hung over the Lorraine countryside as the Panthers of the German 113th Panzer Brigade rolled forward toward their objectives. The landscape was silent, except for the grinding of tank tracks and the distant rumble of engines. At 6:20, the lead elements of the brigade encountered something unusual. German reports later filed with 5th Panzer Army headquarters described enemy tank destroyers of unknown type. What stood out immediately was not their firepower, but their speed and agility. Within minutes of contact, 3 German Panthers were knocked out. The enemy vehicles appeared, fired quickly, then disappeared back into the mist before German gunners could even swing their turrets into position. Through the fog, German tank crews heard a strange high-pitched whine. It was unlike any tank engine they had heard before, almost like an aircraft cutting through the morning air. Low silhouettes emerged, spat fire, and then were gone. Each engagement lasted no more than 20 seconds. The German crews were shaken. That morning, 39 tanks of the 113th Panzer Brigade, commanded by Colonel Erich von Funkendorf, would learn a terrifying truth. The Americans had unleashed a machine unlike anything the Germans had expected. It was the M18 Hellcat, a tank destroyer that could reach 55 miles per hour, faster than any tracked armored vehicle in the world. German doctrine had assumed that tank destroyers would always be slow and heavily armored fortresses like their own Jagd Panthers. But the American Shad built something based on an entirely different philosophy: speed as armor, mobility as survival, agility as lethality. And in the fog of Aracourt, that doctrine was about to rewrite the mathematics of tank warfare. To understand how this came about, we need to step back to December 1941. At the War Department, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Davis Bruce, a cavalryman by training, presented a radical idea. German blitzkrieg tactics had already crushed Poland in 35 days, and France, the largest army in Europe, in just 6 weeks. Bruce argued that America shouldn't try to match German tanks gun for gun or armor for armor. Instead, America should build something that hunted tanks the way cavalry once hunted infantry, with speed, surprise, and maneuver. The concept was simple: seek, strike, destroy. That became the motto of America's tank destroyer force. By 1943, Buick engineers had produced the T-70 prototype, later known as the M18 Hellcat. It was small, lightly armored, and carried a 76mm gun. On paper, it seemed absurd, weighing only 17 tons with armor no thicker than 25mm. It looked like a death trap compared to German designs. German intelligence dismissed the project as naive American thinking. But the Americans had built something revolutionary. Powered by a Wright radial aircraft engine, the Hellcat could travel at 55 mph on roads, faster than most trucks. Its hydraulic turret could spin a full 360 degree in just 24 seconds, independent of engine speed. Compare that to the German Panther, whose turret might take 30 to 60 seconds to rotate, depending on RPM. In tank combat, that difference could mean life or death. The Germans first encountered the Hellcat during the breakout at Anio in May 1944, reports from the Hermann Göring Panzer Division noted a new enemy tank destroyer that seemed to move at 70 to 80 km/h. 2 Panzer IVs were destroyed before the Americans sped away. Berlin filed these reports as exaggerated. Surely they thought stressed crews were overestimating what they had seen. But by September 1944 at Aracourt, the Germans could no longer deny reality. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion attached to the 4th Armored Division used their M18s with devastating effectiveness. Lieutenant Edwin Leiper's platoon destroyed 15 German tanks in just 30 minutes using shoot and scoot tactics. Sergeant Henry Hartmann's crew alone accounted for 6 Panthers, repositioning after every shot before the Germans could respond. The Germans were stunned. According to their own records, the 113th Panzer Brigade lost 39 tanks in a single day with minimal American losses. When German forces finally captured an intact Hellcat later that year, they were shocked by what they found. The official report confirmed its weight, less than half a Panther, maximum speed 88 km/h, power to weight ratio nearly double their own machines, armor paper thin. And yet the conclusion was chilling. Combat effectiveness depends entirely on mobility and crew training. The Hellcat was not meant to slug it out. It was meant to move, strike, and vanish. Its doctrine reflected this. M18 crews were trained never to remain in one position longer than a minute. Fire 3 to 5 shots, then move at least 200 wide. Never fight fair. Always change angles. keep the enemy guessing. German crews trained for deliberate long-range duels simply could not adapt. This difference was made brutally clear again in December 1944 during the Battle of the Bulge. At the crossroads near Novel, just 4 M18s held offense of the German 2nd Panzer Division. By rapidly shifting through the fog, firing a few rounds, then vanishing, they created the illusion of a much larger force. German reports noted enemy vehicles of high mobility, unable to engage due to rapid displacement. German tanks were destroyed for the loss of a single Hellcat. That delay gave the 101st Airborne Division time to reinforce Bastogne, changing the course of the battle. The Germans tried to adapt. Orders went out. Don't try to track Hellcats with turret travers. Instead, predict where they'll appear. Use artillery. Use infantry with Panzerfausts. But it was too late. The Hellcat was simply too fast. Between 1943 and 1944, Buick produced just over 2,500 Hellcats. They were relatively expensive, about $55,000 each, but could be mass-produced using American automotive techniques. Training emphasized speed and aggression. Drivers learned to maneuver at high speed across rough ground. Gunners trained to shoot quickly rather than precisely, and commanders were taught to think 3 moves ahead, planning escape routes before they even fired. But speed came at a cost. The Hellcat's armor was so thin that even machine gun fire could penetrate at close range. Crews knew that if they stopped moving, they were dead. This shaped the psychology of the men who fought in them. One veteran later said, "We live by 3 rules. Shoot fast, move fast, think fast. If you did all 3, you went home. If you missed one, you didn't." By the end of the war, M18 crews had destroyed hundreds of German tanks. Kill-to-loss ratios averaged about 2.3 to 1. Not spectacular compared to heavy German tanks, but remarkable given their light protection. What mattered most was the delay they caused, the battles they bought time in, and the way they forced German tankers to fight on American terms. The Hellcat's legacy went far beyond World War II. After the war, the U.S. disbanded the tank destroyer branch, but the philosophy of mobility lived on. The Soviet Union built the PT-76 and later the BMP, prioritizing speed. The British developed the CVR reconnaissance vehicles. West Germany's Leopard 1 abandoned heavy armor in favor of mobility. Modern wheeled tank destroyers like Italy's Centauro and Japan's Type 16 carry on the Hellcat's DNA. The Germans, despite their reputation for tactical innovation, never truly found a way to counter it. Their doctrines, their turrets, and even their psychology had been built around deliberate, methodical warfare. The Hellcat rewrote the rules. To the men who served in them, the Hellcat was both terrifying and life-saving. Thin armor meant they were always at risk, but speed meant they had a chance. One crewman recalled, "It was a tin can, but it was a tin can that could run 55 miles an hour. That speed saved my life more times than any armor could have." In the end, the M18 Hellcat wasn't about matching German tanks. It was about negating them. It was proof that in war, survival doesn't always belong to the strongest or the heaviest. Sometimes it belongs to the fastest, the most agile, the most adaptable. At Aracourt in the Ardennes and across Europe, German tankers learned that lesson the hard way. By the time they realized what the Hellcat could do, it was already too late. The M18 Hellcat, 55 MEP of American audacity, a machine that outran not just German tanks but German doctrine itself.